Good morning, my dear friends. I promised that in the next episode I would also appear in the garden. And here I am, despite the unfavorable weather, because today it's really quite cold, but I would like to tell you about what you can already start doing in the garden. So, equipped with pruning shears, already equipped with some tools, I want to tell you that today we will be pruning, today we will be propagating, and today we will be planning. And I ask you to write if you can't wait to run out into the garden and start working. When should you prune grapevines, currants, gooseberries, or actinidia, which are like tiny kiwis? January is the perfect time to do just that. Of course, remember that you shouldn't do this during severe frosts, like -10 or 15 degrees. If the frost is milder, you can safely do it. Why do we do this in January? Because the sap pressure in such a grapevine is very high. If you start pruning them in March, the sap will simply start flowing out as water, meaning the plant will cry. The pressure will push out this water, and it really weakens the plant. That's why such pruning is done for plants that cry like this. In January, in the second half of January, you can already do it without worry, but remember to adjust it to the conditions where you live. I'm already equipped with pruning shears, and I'm going to check on my mini actinidia, which has just been planted. Last year I already came here by the currant bush, and the currant is exactly the plant that I'll tell you more about in a moment, because while pruning we can also collect parts from which we'll have new plants. While pruning and trimming such currant bushes or even dogwood, listen, you can take so-called cuttings, which are sticks from which we can very easily propagate plants, and dogwoods are really good for this. For a hedge or currant bushes, we cut these sticks, about 4 or 5 different buds. It's best to tie them. Label them in bunches of 10-15 pieces, put them in a cool room. They can be placed in a pot, individually or as a bunch. We put them in a pot, cover them with sand and soil, and leave them until spring, water them a little, and then take them out in late spring. We already have these small new seedlings with tiny roots. We transplant them into new pots or directly into the ground, and we have new plants. This is a great way to do something good for the plants. By pruning them, you can immediately propagate more plants. And there behind me in the corner, there's already a plant that, even though it's only the first half of January, is already starting to bloom. And in a moment, I'll show you what kind of plant it is. A plant that blooms despite the frost, slowly, quietly, in the corner. This beautiful plant is starting to bloom. Even though it's the middle of January, the first half of January, you can already see this super yellow color appearing here. When I get closer and smell it, it even has a wonderful scent. What kind of plant is this? This is Chimonanthus, which blooms fantastically in my garden every year in the first half of January. My brain, my dear friends, must have frozen because it's so cold, so I decided to go back home and have a cup of warm tea, a winter one. But when it's this cold, of course, we still have things to do, maybe not in the garden, but preparations, for example. Planning or checking certain things is also quite important, and to plan, we need to have something to work with. So you can watch videos like this, or you can also look through some new books or magazines. And today I'll also tell you about what has recently appeared in my bookshelf. And I'll tell you how to save a little by doing a small experiment. How to save even 200 zlotys at the start of the season. First of all, you need to check what seeds you have at home if you plan to sow and do a quick test. I'll tell you how to do this test in a moment. But first, let me ask you, are you already prepared to start the season? Have you already bought all the seeds? Do you know what seeds you need and where you will sow them? If, like me, you haven't had time to organize your seeds, January is a great time, and actually the last moment to sort them and check what seeds you have. In a moment, I'll start sorting them. First, I'll divide them into vegetable garden seeds and ornamental plants, and then I'll further divide the vegetable garden seeds into specific groups of plants. Why? So I know what I need? But before I go out to buy new seeds, it would be good to do a simple test. A test of your older seeds' ability to germinate. How can you do it quickly, and how can you save even a few hundred zlotys? Prepare a small container, put a paper towel in it, add some water so that the towel is completely soaked, and choose the seeds you want to check for their ability to germinate. Put about 10 seeds in there. The ones you care about the most, and here I have, for example, Cale Nero di Toscana, I put them on the paper. I can spray it later, so we spray it. I cover it with some food wrap, even transparent one, make a few holes and leave it in a warm room. I come back to it after 7 days, 7 to 10 days, and check if the seeds have sprouted. If out of those 10 seeds only 1 or 2 sprout, then I take those seeds and basically I can throw them away. If 7 sprout, it means I won't have empty beds in May and that most of the seeds will germinate. And that's a great way to check if the seeds are suitable for germination. Once you know what you need, what you want to have, and whether your seeds are able to germinate, of course you need to make a plan, and this is also a very good time when you're sitting with your tea to plan what will appear in your garden. When it comes to the vegetable area, it's very important to practice what's called crop rotation, which means planting and sowing plants one after another that don't transmit diseases. For example, last year I showed you how I planned my vegetable garden. The video from that planning is somewhere here, and based on that, I actually have it saved on my tablet. You can just as well do it on a piece of paper. Now I'm planning my vegetable garden. Last year went well. I was still picking tomatoes in November. Therefore, this year I will also put a lot of effort into it and make a new layout for my vegetable garden. I'll try to show it on my social media as well, on Instagram, so I encourage you to check out my Instagram. And I also encourage you to write about what your best solutions are for planning a vegetable garden and this crop rotation, what grows best after what. I'll be very happy if you write about it, because maybe I'll also avoid some mistakes. From my own experience, I more or less know what should follow what, but my vegetable garden isn't big enough to always stick to that, so sometimes I take a bit of a risk. And your help will be really huge here. If you tell me that, for example, it's actually possible to plant something after something else, because it somehow works out. Once you've planned your vegetable area and want to start planning new plantings, new beds, it's worth checking out some books. I recently bought some new titles. Designing Naturalistic Gardens, The Basic Principles by Nigel Dannett. Whitefornia Publishing released a translation because it's not the original, and it's really worth using these translations since there are more and more of them. I also have a new title called Dry Garden, Lessons from the Gravel Garden. Beth Chatto, no, that's really great. Of course, it's best to read in the original, but if someone would like it in Polish, that's possible too. I have another suggestion for you. Write in the comments which book you like the most and tag the creator. Let's make a list of books like this. Maybe it will be useful to someone, maybe someone doesn't know a particular book and will discover it through our comments. Very often when new titles come out, I buy them, of course. Later, I don't have time to look at them for a while, and then I find them on the shelf and say, oh, this is great. And that's exactly what happened with the book by Łukasz Huczaj, Wild Garden, which sat on my shelf for a while, and only recently did I start looking through it. I like it very, very much, and it's one of those works by a Polish author that I highly recommend. Remember to write which book is a real treasure trove of knowledge for you. Let this be our New Year's list. And in the next episodes, I'll tell you a little bit about houseplants because it's already time to start repotting them, doing some spring care, and the next 2 episodes will probably be about houseplants. If you have a plant that you really want me to talk about, write it in the comments as well. Maybe at a later date, I'll be able to make just such an episode. See you.